Erik McKinney here with Darrell Rideaux from a very chilly San Diego and made a lot colder by the Holiday Bowl final score. Iowa 49, USC 24. This was a game that got off to a real offensive start and certainly ended that way too. A ton of points scored between both teams, but 7-0, 7-7, tied at 14, and then blink of an eye, Iowa 98-yard kick return. They go up, they force a USC punt, they go up by 2 touchdowns, and really kind of that was it as Iowa runs away with the game. Thanks in large part being able to run away with it. Kedon Slovis gets injured, but overall it is a lot of the same stuff that we saw all season. A quarterback getting injured, USC unable to stop perimeter runs, and special teams issues. That's what I take away from this game. That's what I take away really from a bulk, if not the entire season.
Right. And it just felt like, Erik, the way that the season starts is the way that the season ends. You start the season with your starting quarterback going down to an injury and a backup comes in. And lo and behold, in a game, when you talk about Kedon Slovis and what he has meant to this Trojan team and how that offensively it seemed to have embodied his character, he goes down and just the wheels fell off. And you felt like if there was one aspect of USC's 3 phases, from special teams to defense to offense, you felt very confident offensively that behind Kedon Slovis that this offense had a puncher's chance to stay in games or to take over a game. But when he goes down, you suddenly realize how valuable he was and is to the future of USC offensively and to the future of the way that this team wants to play.
And when it happened too, it's in the third quarter. USC comes out, they get the ball to start the second half. A big pass from Slovis to St. Brown. They punch in a touchdown, and to go down 4 points, they recover an onside kick, and it looks like here they go. The offense is continuing to roll, and they're going to be able to outscore Iowa. Maybe 2 plays later, he's down, and then USC runs for no gain. Matt Fink, who came in, he gets sacked, and that's really they could get nothing going offensively. When Slovis went down, when Matt Fink came in, there was the USC sideline, the fans, they were going crazy. There was a lot of energy. It felt like they might be able to will this thing, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think you saw right there how important Kedon Slovis is to this USC offense.
And I know we are focusing primarily on Kedon Slovis and what he meant, because truly the offense was the highlight and bright spot at times in this game. But you talk about having multiple weeks to prepare since the last game against UCLA, which virtually ended, right before Thanksgiving. And when you think about how much time you had to prepare and how much time you had to fix a lot of the issues defensively, going back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals is what reared its ugly head. We saw an Iowa team where we barely watched highlights and we got a good glimpse of who they were. And that's a mark of a good coach team. Give much credit to Kirk Ferentz, who summoned his own demons. Going back to my senior year in 2002-2003 Orange Bowl, where we played Iowa. It took him all but, 18 years or so to have another opportunity to face these Trojans with a different outcome. And what did we see? We saw a defense that played to their strengths. We knew who the stars were, and the stars shined. When you talk about Epinezi and some of the guys defensively and what they were able to do, sack, cause, fumbles, to really give short fields for an Iowa offense that isn't designed to put up as many points as they put up. I believe they scored over 30 points if you don't include the pick 6. So if you take away 2 unorthodox styles of touchdowns from the pick 6 at the end of the game and then a kickoff return for touchdown, this is still an Iowa offense that had multiple drives well over 6-7 minutes, and it just felt like it wore the defense down. Erik, they featured a lot of what we call 23 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 tight end sets, and that off-balance alignment really forced USC defensively to have to play sound and discipline. And all the mistakes that we've seen them make throughout the year in bunch set formations, we talked about it leading up to this game. The defense was challenged on the edges to hold the perimeter, but also for the secondary to not lose containment. And many times we saw guys running free and guys basically in a trail position when they should have been upfield. So my takeaway from this is Clay Helton talks about getting the Malcolm Gladwell concept going from good to great. Well, you're really going to have to evaluate all aspects of your program, starting with coordinators. Should there be a change made, or can you correct the mistakes that reared its head all season long?
Defensively, what did you see? I mean, Iowa scores 2 rushing touchdowns with wide receivers going to the outside. One on a true reverse, one on an end around where, again, USC can't hold the point on the outside. And this is something where when Iowa wanted to go up the middle, they had some success. So if you're going to get sort of bullied physically up the middle, you've got to be the faster team. And on both sides of the ball, it felt like Iowa could run with USC or outrun USC like we saw in the kick return and with some of the big plays down the field that Iowa had. Certainly USC with a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, where he got loose down the field in a couple of plays, that they have their skill position set for the coming years, it looks like. But it was surprising to see Iowa really run with USC. You knew they were going to be physical on both lines, and there was a question, could USC match that?
Right.
I don't think they could, but how Iowa outran them and got to the edges and did that was surprising for me.
But let's be clear. It wasn't one of those games where Iowa rushed for 300 yards. It wasn't that kind of a game.
Right.
But it was the way that they were able to effectively run, control the clock at will. And to me, I thought that this was a bad matchup for USC defensively, primarily because USC likes to run a nickel package. They prefer to feature an extra defender, a secondary player such as Greg Johnson, rather than playing a true outside strong linebacker that we call a Sam linebacker. So because of that personnel, that is what they typically like to feature. And there were times where USC was caught with the smaller lineup against a big set. It looked like 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receiver sets, but lo and behold, it was truly 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. And that big on big, that muscle was just enough for Iowa to really kind of keep USC on their heels. But you talked about it. It was the receiver motions, lazy in the trail technique, and inside the red zone, USC elected to play a lot of man coverage when they should have been a zone coverage with their heels on the line, on the goal line, reacting to everything that they saw. But it was because they elected to play a lot of man coverage, Iowa was able to motion their running backs or wide receivers into the backfield and then seep them back out. And what we found was a lot of the secondary players, such as the corners, in trail positions. So it made it for easy catch and go for Iowa's quarterback, Stanley.
The play from Iowa's offense, there were 3 plays in a row, quarterback sneaks. They got in, I believe they started around the 12-yard. This is not a first and goal from the 1 situation.
Right.
They were backed out a little bit. Quarterback sneak, quarterback sneak, quarterback sneak. The third one probably could have been called a touchdown, but was ruled down. Iowa ran in conventionally for a score after that. But when they went 3 quarterback sneaks in a row, it certainly showed how at least they felt the rest of that game was going to go. What do you take as a former player when a team is doing that to you on either side? How do you feel if you're Iowa there? How do you feel if you're USC there?
When you get a team that disrespects you by running 3 quarterback sneaks, that is mano-a-mano, big on big. That is where they're testing your fortitude. And when you are on the defensive side of that battle and you are taking that kind of whipping, you're quick to look on the sideline and say, give me something else. Let's change our front. Bring in an extra defender on the defensive line, take out someone, change up the packages. We've seen this USC defensive staff under Clancy Pendergast in the past against Stanford take off a safety and bring in an interior lineman. We didn't see much of that. And there's nothing more demoralizing than to have a team hurt you where you believe you are the strongest. And USC prides itself at being the strongest in the interior part of the defensive line. But the way that they were able to get, Iowa was able to get penetration, frustrated USC to the extent where you kind of felt like they were starting to wave the white flag. Now, this is a very prideful team that's going to fight to the end, but there is a time where the scheme and the personnel don't align, and when you feel like you're outmanned. And in this game, there was nothing special that Iowa did that hadn't been seen all season long or hadn't been prepared going into this game. But the difference was you couldn't simulate the type of physicality that Iowa brought from the Midwest in the Big Ten in this cold weather. And to me, that made all of the difference. You saw USC wear down and start to wilt at the end. I'm not accustomed to seeing that. I'm accustomed to being on the opposite side of those butt whoopings where we have players that dominate. And so this offseason, if you're going to expect change kind of has to start from inside out. Inside meaning from the coaching staff, much like we saw with the offensive coordinator and the position coaches on that side. And change up the scheme defensively, because what they are running now doesn't seem to be sustainable. Now that you put a ribbon around this 2019 season and you're looking and you're projecting ahead, you can expect that type of physicality to come from the likes of an Alabama.
Let's go ahead and spin it forward. I don't think Clay Helton after the game tonight was non-committal in terms of specific changes, if there will be any or won't be any, with his coaching staff. I don't think it's going to surprise us at all if there are multiple changes with that staff at some point in the future. What do you take from here? How do you spin things forward? Not even talking specifically about which changes should be made, but can this team take anything from this season? What do you see being able to maybe spin forward? Because we talked to Jalen McKenzie after the game, and they know Alabama's coming. They know the next time they step on the field for a real game, it's Alabama. So how do you use this? How do you use this to kind of launch yourself forward to get to that point?
And Clay talked about not losing a lot of seniors. I believe he referenced about 7 seniors, and of the 7, maybe 4 have given you production as starters. From a personnel standpoint, there's a lot to be optimistic about. You know who your quarterback is, or at the very, you know who your quarterback should be going into next season. So that side of the ball, you should feel very confident. And we saw glimpses of what this offense can truly be with a healthy Vavai Malepeai, a Stephen Carr, if those two elect to return, and then you complement that with a healthier Marquis Step. You feel very good about the nucleus of your running game if you commit to a balanced attack. Defensively, you feel like you have personnel that could very easily convert over back to a 4-3 traditional and then mix in a nickel package. But the question that really looms for Clay Helton is, you feel dejected having 3 weeks to prepare. If you want to gain the confidence of your team, win the locker room by making key personnel changes that galvanizes, that energizes this team. Bring somebody in, make a quick decision so that your team know that everything moving forward is to prepare and focus for a new chapter. I think you can win the locker room and excel by gaining that confidence if you make quick decisions. But if you allow this thing to linger on well beyond the second signing day, you're in essence becoming a lame duck.
You really have a couple opportunities now to make a positive step forward. This was a missed opportunity. You could have gained a lot of sort of trust back, I think, from the fan base by coming down to San Diego, playing a good Iowa team and making a statement with what you have moving forward. That did not happen. So now you have what the coaching staff eventually looks like, what shape that takes, and then that February signing period. And that's sort of it. You've got to make moves that put this fan base back on your side, because right now it's tough.
And Erik, this is the true test of leadership, making those hard decisions. But I think that this game also, it raised a lot of questions that we all had as a fan base, in the media. We all knew that there was aspects of this program that needed some correcting. And this game reared its head to a point where I think it revealed a systemic need for change. And so, will Clay Helton be tone deaf to what he saw on the football field and be loyal to the people that he brought to the dance? Or will he do what is best for this program and make those hard, tough decisions. And if he is truly committed to a massive overhaul and changing this program, as I quote him from a Malcolm Gladwell quote, taking this program from good to great, it is going to take those tough decisions. So I am very curious to see the type of leadership that Clay Helton may exemplify, as he feels he now has the support of an athletic director that has demonstrated with conviction that he is going to march at the beat of his own path.
Yeah, a lot of questions facing this USC program, and an 8-5 season here as we finish up from USC's loss to Iowa in the Holiday Bowl. We'll see what happens kind of as it goes. But again, Alabama next up on the schedule, and we'll see if USC can get things right as they move from the 2019 season into this 2020 season. We'll see everybody back on the field for spring ball.
For spring ball.
For Darrell, Rideaux, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching We Are SC.